Hello, and welcome to a new video. So today I'm going to be doing a requested video, and I actually love this request because it is back to school season if you're in school. So I will be giving you my best study tips as a college student, but maybe this can also apply if you're in high school still, but especially if you're in college. And yeah, I'm actually really excited because, not to brag, but if there is something I'm good at, I would say it's studying subjects that I can excel in and feel competent in. So yeah, and I think a lot of this is for memorization heavy studying, but can also be applied to application, because even in application there's a certain level of memorization as well. But yeah, so I made a little doc with things I want to talk to you about. So the first thing I highly recommend is a weekly calendar tasks list. And for a while I was using a physical planner, but I actually switched to the notes app on my computer. Whatever works for you, whatever is easy to access, or if you like the act of physically writing it down. And then in tandem with this, I said to download all your syllabuses into a folder on your computer, or if you like it in paper form, print all the syllabuses out, because a lot of times in college you're not going to have reminders of what readings are due, what assignments are due. It's a lot through the syllabus. You have to constantly be checking that. So instead of always going to the teacher's site or whatever, I'd rather just have it all in a folder. And what I would do is go into the folder at the beginning of every week, and for each class click on the syllabus, see what's due for the week, and write it down. That way I'm not constantly having to reference the syllabus throughout the week either. So I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. I'll write weekly schedule at the top here, and then I'll put usually like the week, so the dates from the start of the week to the end. And then I'll do Monday in bold and the date, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I'll list in not bold all the assignments for each class. So for instance, econ, psych, this, And then if it also helps you like to put times for when things are due, like 11:55 p.m., 12 p.m., whatever. And then also if you want to look ahead, I put upcoming, so maybe I have something really big due the next week. So even though I need to do all this, I also need to be focusing on this a little bit so it doesn't jump scare me when the week starts. And then just to show you, I have like 3 little folders in the corner of my computer. This is schedule, books, because I like to download like PDF versions of books, and then I say syllabuses, but syllabuses in here, so I can click on this, get the syllabus, and write everything down that's in the syllabus for that week without having to constantly check back to it. Now, if you prefer an actual planner, I'll show you an example of when I used to do that. So I would get a planner like this, and you want to get a weekly one where it divides it up into each day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it would even have weekend and other notes. So basically I would just write down everything that needed to get done or was due that day, and then I could cross it off. This is another week. This is another week. So as you can tell, most things were due on Tuesday and Friday. Yeah, so I did it this way for a while as well. And on the Notes app, it allows you to strike through things you did, so cross it off without actually deleting it yet, if you want to reference back to what you did. So that is study tip number 1. And now I'll talk a little bit about notes themselves, taking notes. So my next tip is to take notes as if it's already your study guide, because all in all, that is the purpose of notes typically, that you're preparing to take a test. And I am a big fan of headings and subheadings, bullets and sub-bullets. So as you can already tell by this little doc I prepared for you, this is how I love to take notes. I like to put a main bullet point, bold it, and then stuff underneath it. And oftentimes you can go into sub bullets, but that helps me really separate term, main ideas, and definitions and examples. And yeah, so basically separating term from what I need to know about that term. I also say use colors and fonts that you like. I think that makes it engaging. It makes it pleasant to look at your notes. So sometimes I'll do it like fun pinks, highlight in fun pinks, because you can kind of create your own colors on Google Docs as well. And I do the same method when I have to read a book or a textbook for a class. So I had a really textbook heavy class where the professor would take questions straight out of the textbook. And that's what helped me get an A in this like infamously difficult class. Is I would basically, my notes, before I even read the book, I would put all the headings and subheadings to make sure I wrote stuff on each major section of the book and really kept my thoughts organized. So here's just a little example of a class I actually recently took, but I would put really big main ideas in pink and then do the bullets. Some of them had sub bullets, and then key terms and their definitions in different colors. And this helps me visually break it up so that when I go to make my study guide, which I'll talk about in the next study tip, I know that this is going to be my term and this is going to be my definition, or this is going to be the front of the flashcard and this is the back, to memorize the components. Because I feel like for a lot of memorization subjects or even free response questions, you need to remember things in like bulleted lists, like the 4 theories of this, the 4 ways that things do this. So whenever there's a sequence, I highly recommend really showing that in your notes as well. Okay, this next study tip is probably my biggest hack and what I tell people to do. However, a lot of times people don't want to do it because it is more work, but I'm telling you, like, this has been my recipe. Like, I feel like I really cracked my brain how I study and perform well on tests with this method. And I actually make, okay, so I'll show you what the tip is, but it's called Quizlet and the Active Recall Method. And you don't need the pro version of Quizlet if that helps you learn to do the learn method. That's basically a digital version of Active Recall, but I'm a little stingy. I don't want to pay for Quizlet Premium, so I just make a free set of Quizlets with the flashcards, and you can turn on the setting where you sort them into know and not know, or the green check mark and the red X. And I will show you, I also basically transfer it onto a piece of paper when I'm studying, because I know you hear this and you don't always want to do it, but writing things down does help you recall it. I'm like not only looking at the digital flashcards, because that's too much work to make real flashcards, but I'm writing the terms down in my notebook basically, but I'll break that down in a second. But when you're doing this method, like, you have to kind of be hard on yourself, because it's up to you how well you know the material. So, and you really want to drill these concepts that you don't know. So even though you may see a card and be like, well, I basically know that, and sort it into know, you should actually sort it into not know, at least for the first round, because if you don't fully know the term and everything behind it, then you might regret just sorting it into something you already know, if that makes sense. And also, don't be afraid to put a lot on the back of the flashcard. So if you use Quizlet, you know it's term and definition, so the back of the card would be the definition. And in my method, the reason why I can put a lot of on the back of the card is that I'm basically on my piece of notebook paper recalling everything I remember on the back, but I'll give myself hints for the next round and what else to fill in. And that way you're really like memorizing each facet of the term, because like I was saying earlier, like a lot of times professors in lessons, they structure it into like 4 things to know about this, or like the 4 terms related to this. And I'm using 4, but it could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 3. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, I even use this method for FRQ type tests when you need to just remember points in your brain of what you're going to write in response to a question. It could be econ, politics, history, things like that. So I'll go ahead and show you an example of this method in action, because you're probably like, what are you talking about? I have notebooks and notebooks of my active recall method. I'll show you. So basically what's in the pencil is the first round, I would say, where I go through the flashcards. And then I'll leave blanks for what I need to fill in on the next round. And I do that in a different color. So again, visually it's breaking it up again. And sometimes I have to go back through in multiple colors. This was like a 2 to 3 round active recall session, but sometimes I'll have to come back in 2 to 3 colors if I'm really not remembering the content. But here's like a big notebook of stuff. So for instance, this was a FRQ type test. So I was putting down concepts I need to remember for the FRQ and leaving blanks for myself. So it is a lot of work, but I'm telling you, I really memorized stuff like this. And I'll break it down again because I feel like it's so nonsense. This is, I believe this was for like a political science course. So a little bit of memorization, a little bit of FRQ. Yeah, this is still like that same course. It looks crazy, I'm telling you. It looks a little crazy. Okay, this is for a history class. So it's really good for memorizing history. So basically, I would give myself hints. So like, this is Jean Paul Marat. So I'd put, he's a radical blank. September blank, 1792. Battle of Valmy, I remember that one the first round. So then the next round I'd go back through with a different color, and then I'd remember, okay, radical journalist, September, whatever the event happened, okay? So for that same kind of history test, so this is often how I make sets, and then I break the term up into sections, basically mini sections that I want to remember. And it might look crazy, but it's way easier to memorize when you do the active recall method. So you click flashcards, and then you click settings, and you click track progress, which is sorting it into this know and not know. So for instance, say I look at this, my first round of active recall, and I go, okay, Antigua fastbacks. If I don't know anything, like I really don't know anything about it, I'm gonna click to the card and I'm be like, okay, so I need to know the country, that it's a country, and that it's a main island. I need to know the population. I need to know the size, the capital, and its dominant industry. So on on my notebook in a pencil, I would write country blank, population blank, size blank, capital blank, dominant industry blank. Then I would sort into not know. Then the second round, when I'm going through the flashcards, I'm not going to flip this card over until I look at the blanks and try to fill in with a different color what I remember. Okay, so I'm looking at dominant industry. Okay, I remember that was tourism. I remember population was 95,000. So then I can fill that in again. And if there's still blanks you didn't know, you can either leave yourself another hint, or just try to come back through again and fill in the blank later. So hopefully that makes sense of my active recall method. And I honestly don't even know how I came up with this, but it's just been my recipe. Like, I'd heard about it, the concept active recall, but I just kind of curated this very specific way that I do it. And I try to tell people about it, and maybe it doesn't work for them, but if it could help one person out there, then I would love to share it. And my final study tip is to set time aside to solely study. So basically build time in your schedule where that's all you need to focus on is just study, homework. Break it up with things you enjoy doing. So similar to how you're going to set time just for studying, set time just for the gym or whatever exercise or sport you like doing. And then choose a good study environment for you. So there was this period of time where I was studying for the LSAT, and I literally could not focus anywhere but a coffee shop. So I just came to recognize that about myself, that I needed to go to a coffee shop to truly lock in. Eventually I could, start focusing again at home or in other environments, but sometimes it just takes recognizing where do you focus the best and can truly lock in. And I think coffee shop works for me personally. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people can't handle the distraction, but it works for me because it forces me. I can't really do anything but the task at hand. You know what I mean? Like, I could, but then I just went there for no reason. So I don't know. And then kind of on that line, reward yourself with drinks and snacks you like. And remember that setting, it takes energy, it takes brain power, and you need to be fueling yourself. You need to be eating enough. If caffeine helps you, do some caffeine. Don't overdo it though. And just kind of rewarding yourself, maybe when I get through this paper, then I can get another coffee or something like that. I don't know. Extrinsic motivation sometimes is necessary. And then phone on D&D for sure, especially if it's so distracting to you. You can't be constantly interrupting your flow. Definitely take phone breaks, but don't be constantly checking it as you're trying to study, because not only does it make you more inefficient with the time you're giving yourself to solely study, but it's also distracting your brain from fully getting the information. But yeah, I believe that is all for this study tips video, and I hope this helps you, and good luck with your school year, and I'll see you in the next video.